The day the aliens came, the sky above Earth turned dark with their ships. 500 warships appeared near Jupiter, each one bigger than a city. They came in perfect lines, like soldiers standing for inspection. Their black hulls blocked the light of distant stars as they waited in the cold of space. High Commander Veltrix stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Eternal Order. His gray skin shone in the blue light of his screens. He was tall and thin, with eyes that had seen 47 worlds fall to his fleet. He had never lost a battle. He had never known failure. "Send the message," he said to his officers. His voice was calm and cold. The message flew toward Earth at the speed of light. It showed videos of burning planets. It showed aliens kneeling before Valorian soldiers. It showed the power of the Dominion in all its terrible glory. Then came the words, spoken in every human language. "People of Earth, you have 12 hours to surrender. Give us your world, and you will live as servants. Refuse, and you will die as fools. This is your only warning." On Earth, billions of people watched the message on their phones and televisions. Fear spread like fire through dry grass. Parents held their children close. Old people prayed to gods they had forgotten. Young people stared at their screens, not knowing what to do. In a secret base under the Rocky Mountains, Admiral Greg Lawson gathered the leaders of Earth. He was 60 years old, with white hair and a face lined by years of worry. He had fought in wars before, but nothing like this. "Our fleet cannot beat them," he said. The words were hard to speak, but they were true. "If we fight them ship to ship, we will last maybe 3 days. Their weapons are too strong. Their ships are too many." The room fell silent. Some leaders put their heads in their hands. One woman began to cry softly. It seemed like the end of everything. "But," Admiral Lawson continued, "we have another way." He pressed a button, and 2 words appeared on the big screen behind him. Protocol Havoc. 20 years ago, we started planning for this day. We knew that someday an enemy might come that we could not defeat with guns and missiles. So we created a different kind of weapon. President Maria Santos leaned forward in her chair. "What kind of weapon?" Admiral Lawson almost smiled. "Confusion, Madam President. Pure, beautiful confusion." Far out in space, Sub-Commander Serath waited on the bridge of the Eternal Order. He was younger than Veltrix, with sharper eyes and a mind that asked too many questions. His job was to watch for the human response to their ultimatum. "Sir," he said, "we are receiving a transmission from Earth." "Aya," Veltrix nodded. "Put it on screen. Let us see them beg." The screen flickered to life. But instead of a fearful president or a crying general, they saw something else. A cartoon. A bright, colorful cartoon with a rabbit dancing and singing a happy song about vegetables and friendship. Veltrix stared at the screen. His mouth opened, but no words came out. "What is this?" he finally asked. "Their response, sir." "This is not a response. This is entertainment for children." "Yes, sir, but it is all they sent." Veltrix felt something strange in his chest. It was not fear. Valorians did not feel fear. But it was something uncomfortable. Like a math problem that gave the wrong answer no matter how many times he checked it. "Send the ultimatum again." They must have made a mistake. They sent it again. Earth's second response was a cooking show. A fat, happy man was teaching viewers how to make something called spaghetti. He kept making jokes that the Valorian translators could not explain. "Perhaps their communication systems are broken," Serath suggested. "Perhaps," Veltrix said, but he did not believe it. On Earth, Admiral Lawson watched reports from around the world. Protocol Havoc had begun. Every television station, every radio channel, every internet connection was now broadcasting the strangest content humanity had ever created. Cooking shows, cartoons, music videos, game shows, reality television, anything and everything that made no military sense. "Phase 1 is working," he said to his officers. "The Valorians are confused. Now we begin Phase 2. He called Captain Jake Morrison on a secure channel. Jake was 45 years old, with a scarred face and gray in his hair. He commanded a small ship called the USS Defiance. It was not the biggest ship or the strongest, but it had the best crew and the craziest captain. "Jake," Admiral Lawson said, "your orders are simple. Make them afraid of what they cannot understand." Jake smiled. It was not a nice smile. It was the smile of a man who had spent his whole life preparing for this moment. "Understood, sir. The Defiance is ready." On the bridge of the Defiance, Commander Lisa Trent stood beside her captain. She was his second in command, a woman who knew more about battle tactics than most admirals. She had studied every war in human history, looking for the secret to beating stronger enemies. "The Valorians have won 47 wars," she said. "They use perfect math and perfect planning. Their strategies have no flaws." "That is exactly their weakness," Jake replied. "Perfect strategies only work against enemies who follow rules." "We are not going to follow any rules." Lieutenant Danny Vance looked up from his station. He was the youngest officer on the ship, barely 30 years old, but he understood people better than anyone. "Sir, I have been listening to their communications. The Valorians do everything by schedule. They eat at the same time every day. They sleep at the same time. Even their bathroom breaks follow a pattern." "Good," Jake said. "Then we know what to do." "What is that, sir?" "We break every pattern they have ever known." The Defiance slipped away from Earth and headed toward the asteroid belt. It was a tiny ship going to face 500 giants. But sometimes, the smallest stone can start the biggest avalanche. Back on the Eternal Order, Veltrix called a meeting of his top officers. They sat around a long table, their gray faces confused and worried. "The humans are playing games with us," Veltrix said. "They think they can make us angry or scared with their silly broadcasts. They are wrong. We will ignore their tricks and continue with our invasion." But even as he spoke, a new broadcast arrived from Earth. This time, it was a documentary about penguins. The narrator spoke in a calm, friendly voice about how the birds lived in the cold and raised their babies. One of the officers leaned toward Sareth and whispered, "Why are they showing us their birds?" Sareth had no answer. As the Valorian fleet began its long journey toward Earth, something had already changed. The officers who had once been so sure of victory now felt something new. Not fear, not yet, but uncertainty. And for a species that had built their entire civilization on perfect order, uncertainty was the first step toward defeat. The war for Earth had begun. But it would not be fought with guns and bombs alone. It would be fought with cooking shows and cartoon rabbits. With penguins and the Valorian fleet moved through space like a giant machine. Each ship stayed exactly 300 meters from the next. Their engines fired at the same moment. Their crews worked in perfect harmony. This was how they had always fought. This was how they had always won. High Commander Veltrix watched his tactical screens as Earth grew closer. His computers told him that the human defense fleet was waiting near Mars. 200 ships in a standard formation. Easy targets. "Forward squadron, engage the enemy," he ordered. "Use attack pattern 7. 100 Valorian warships broke away from the main fleet and raced toward the human ships. Their weapons glowed with blue energy. Their targeting computers locked onto the small human vessels. The battle lasted 5 minutes. Human ships exploded one after another, filling space with fire and broken metal. The Valorian gunners barely had to aim. The humans had arranged their ships in neat rows, making them perfect targets. "Victory, High Commander," Sareth reported. 200 enemy ships destroyed. We lost nothing." Veltrix allowed himself a small smile. "Good. Continue toward Earth." But far away, hidden in the asteroid belt, Captain Jake Morrison was also smiling. "They took the bait," Commander Lisa Trent said. "All 200 drone ships destroyed. Those poor robots served us well," Jake said. "Now the Valorians think they beat our main fleet. They have no idea where we really are." The ships the Valorians had destroyed were not real warships. They were empty drones with fake signals, designed to look like human vessels on enemy sensors. The real human fleet, 300 strong, was scattered across the solar system in small groups, hiding, waiting, preparing. On the Eternal Order, Valorian crew members went about their normal duties. They ate their meals at the scheduled times. They exercised for exactly 45 minutes each day. They slept for exactly 6 hours each night. Everything followed the pattern. Then the music started. It came through every speaker on every ship in the fleet. A sad song with human words about lost love and broken hearts. The song played for 3 minutes, then stopped without warning. "What was that?" Veltrix demanded. "We do not know, sir. We are trying to find the source." Before they could find it, another broadcast began. A human man was yelling about something called football. He was very angry about referees and bad calls. His voice was loud and rough, then silence. Then a woman reading poetry about flowers, then a man trying to sell cleaning products. The broadcasts kept coming, one after another. Through channels the Valorians could not block. Every time they closed one frequency, another opened. The content never made sense. It never followed a pattern. "This is psychological warfare," Sereth said quietly to Veltrix. "They are trying to confuse us." "Kupinyu. It will not work," Veltrix replied. "We are Valorian. We do not get confused." But across the fleet, something was changing. Crew members who had never known uncertainty began to feel uncomfortable. They could not focus on their work because they kept waiting for the next strange broadcast. What would it be? Another song? More yelling? The waiting was worse than the broadcasts themselves. Captain Jake Morrison guided the Defiance through the asteroid belt. His ship was small and fast, almost invisible when moving slowly. He had practiced this route many times. He knew every rock, every shadow, every hiding place. "Target ahead," Lisa Trent reported. Valorian supply ship, carrying food and medicine for the fleet. "Any weapons?" "Light guns only, not a warship." Jake nodded. "Perfect. Prepare Operation Hot Lunch." The Defiance struck fast. Its weapons disabled the supply ship's engines in seconds. Before the Valorians could call for help, human soldiers boarded the vessel. They moved quickly and quietly, doing their work without hurting anyone. 20 minutes later, they left. When Valorian rescue ships arrived, they found the supply vessel drifting in space. The crew was alive but confused. They said the humans had done something to the cargo, but they did not know what. Back on the Eternal Order, Veltrix received the report. The medicine was fine. The equipment was fine. But the food had been changed. "Changed to what?" Veltrix asked. "Human food, sir. Something called Mexican cuisine." Veltrix did not understand why this mattered. Food was food. He ordered the supplies sent to the fleet. 3 hours later, his communicator exploded with calls from ships across the fleet. Soldiers were flooding into medical bays. They were crying and screaming. Their mouths felt like they were on fire. Their stomachs were in pain. "What is happening?" Veltrix shouted. "The food, sir. It is extremely spicy. The humans replaced everything with their hottest dishes. Our soldiers have never tasted anything like it. Our humans replaced everything like it. Are they dying?" "No, sir. The food is not poison. It just causes great discomfort." Veltrix stared at the reports in disbelief. His soldiers were not wounded. They were not sick. They were just very uncomfortable, and there was nothing in his training about fighting an enemy who attacked with painful food. Lieutenant Danny Vance monitored enemy communications from his station on the Defiance. He smiled as he listened to Valorian officers arguing about the spicy food situation. "They have no idea what to do," he reported. "Some officers want to throw away all the remaining food. Others say they need it to survive the journey. They are fighting with each other." "What about their sleep schedules?" Jake asked. "Ready for Phase 2, sir." That night, across 500 Valorian warships, loud alarms screamed through the corridors at random times. Sometimes the alarms lasted seconds. Sometimes they lasted minutes. They came every few hours, always when the crews were trying to rest. Valorian soldiers jumped from their beds, ready for battle, only to find nothing happening. By morning, they were exhausted and angry. They had not slept well. Their mouths still burned from the spicy food. and the strange broadcasts continued, without stopping. Sub-Commander Sarath found Veltrix alone in his quarters, staring at tactical screens that showed nothing useful. "Sir, the crews are struggling. They are tired and uncomfortable. Morale is dropping. Have we lost any ships?" "No, sir." "Any soldiers?" "No, sir." Then the invasion continues. These tricks cannot stop us. But Sarath had been studying human history on his own time. He had learned about wars where small, weak armies had defeated much stronger enemies through unconventional tactics. Guerrilla warfare, they called it. Fighting without rules. "Sir, perhaps we should change our approach. The humans are not fighting like normal enemies." Veltrix turned to face him. His eyes were tired, but his voice was firm. "There is no other approach. We are Valorian. We do not change our plans because of hot food and strange music." Sarath wanted to argue, but he knew it would be useless. Veltrix had conquered 47 worlds using the same methods. He would not change now. Far away, Admiral Lawson sent a message to the human fleet. Phase 1 complete. Phase 2 working. Enemy morale is dropping. Prepare for Phase 3. Time to show them what chaos really looks like. Captain Jake Morrison received the message and smiled. So far, humanity had not lost a single ship or soldier. The Valorians had not suffered any real damage either. But damage was not the goal. The goal was confusion. The goal was to make the enemy question everything they knew. And from the reports he was seeing, the plan was working. On the Eternal Order, High Commander Veltrix finally fell. The Valorian fleet entered the asteroid belt on the 15th day of the invasion. Millions of rocks floated through space around them, some as small as cars, others as large as mountains. The normal way to pass through was to go around, but that would take too long. Veltrix ordered his ships to push straight through. "Our shields can handle small impacts," he said. "We will not slow down for rocks." The 500 warships moved into the field of floating stone. Their sensors watched for danger. Their weapons stayed ready. Everything seemed under control. Then one of the asteroids exploded. It was a small rock, barely worth noticing. But when it broke apart, a human ship flew out from inside it. The tiny vessel fired 3 missiles at a Valorian cruiser, then disappeared behind another rock before anyone could shoot back. "Enemy contact!" Sarath shouted. "Sector 7. Destroy it," Veltrix commanded. 20 Valorian ships turned their guns toward Sector 7. They fired enough energy to melt a small moon. But the human ship was already gone, hiding somewhere among the endless rocks. A moment later, another human ship appeared on the other side of the fleet. It fired once at a transport vessel, scratching its hull, then vanished. Then another ship, then another. Captain Jake Morrison flew the Defiance through the asteroid belt like a dancer moving between raindrops. He knew this place well. He had spent months learning every rock, every gap, every shadow, where a small ship could hide. "Fire at that destroyer," he ordered. "Then cut engines and hide behind Rock 47. The Defiance fired. The shots bounced off the enemy's shields without causing real damage. But damage was not the point. "Did we hurt them?" Lisa Trent asked. "We hurt their pride," Jake replied. "That is enough for now." Commander Trent had created something she called the no-pattern protocol. Every human captain was given a deck of cards. Before each attack, they drew cards to decide when to attack, where to attack, and what weapons to use. Pure chance. No plan. No pattern. The Valorian computers tried to find the pattern in the attacks. They analyzed thousands of pieces of data. They ran millions of calculations. They found nothing because there was nothing to find. On the Eternal Order, alarms kept ringing as human ships appeared and vanished throughout the asteroid belt. Veltrix stood at the center of his bridge, watching the chaos on his screens. "How many enemy ships are there?" he demanded. "We cannot say, sir. Our sensors show between 30 and 300. The rocks are blocking our scans. Give me your best guess." "We cannot guess, sir. The human movements do not follow any logic." Veltrix felt his hands shaking. In 40 years of military service, his hands had never shaken. He gripped his command chair and forced himself to breathe slowly. They must follow some pattern, he said. Every military in the galaxy follows a pattern. Find it. But his officers could not find what did not exist. The attacks continued for 3 days. Human ships struck at random times, from random directions, with random weapons. Sometimes they hit warships. Sometimes they hit supply vessels. Once, they attacked a garbage ship that held nothing but trash. Sub-Commander Sarath brought another report to Veltrix late one night. Sir, Captain Vorix of the Bright Future is requesting permission to leave. He says his crew cannot function. They have not slept well in a week. They jump at every shadow. Veltrix did not look up. Request denied. We do not run from primitive species. Sir, he is not the only one. 17 captains have made similar requests. Fleet morale is at its lowest point ever. Now Veltrix looked up. His eyes were red from lack of sleep. His gray skin had gone pale. Morale does not win wars. Victory wins wars. When we reach Earth and burn their cities, morale will improve. But reaching Earth was taking longer than planned. Every time the fleet tried to leave the asteroid belt, human ships attacked from behind. The Valorians had to keep stopping to defend against enemies they could barely see. Meanwhile, Lieutenant Danny Vance was executing the next part of his plan. He had learned something important about Valorian culture. They had no sense of humor. The Valorians were efficient and logical. They did not make jokes. They did not laugh. They did not understand why anyone would say something false for fun. Danny used this against them. He began broadcasting fake intelligence reports to the Valorian fleet. One report claimed that humans had a weapon that could turn warships into cheese. Another said that Earth was actually a giant spaceship that could fly away. A third said that human soldiers were made of liquid and could flow through walls. The Valorian intelligence officers did not know how to handle these reports. They were trained to analyze all enemy communications for useful information. But how could they analyze claims about cheese weapons? Sir, an officer reported to Veltrix, the humans say they have trained cats to fly fighter ships. Veltrix stared at him. What is a cat? A small animal that humans keep as pets. They are not smart enough to fly ships. Then why would humans say this? Unknown, sir. Perhaps it is a code. Or perhaps humans are even more crazy than we thought. Far away on the Defiance, Danny Vance laughed so hard he almost fell out of his chair. The biggest shock came on the 18th day. A single human ship called the USS Wildcard charged straight at the Valorian flagship. Veltrix could not believe what he was seeing. One tiny ship against his mighty vessel? It was suicide. It had to be a trick. All weapons, target that ship, he ordered. 200 guns aimed at the Wildcard. The little ship kept coming, firing its own weapons wildly in every direction. It shot at empty space. It shot at asteroids. It shot at nothing at all. What are they doing? Sarath asked. I do not know. Prepare for impact. They must be trying to crash into us. The Wildcard came closer. Closer. The Valorian gunners prepared to fire. Their fingers hovered over their triggers. Then the Wildcard turned and flew away at full speed. The Valorian fleet waited for something to happen. An explosion. A hidden weapon. Something that would explain the attack. Nothing happened. The Wildcard just left. Its entire mission was to fly toward the flagship and then not attack it. Veltrix stood in silence for a long time. His computers had spent 3 hours predicting what the Wildcard would do. They had prepared for ramming attacks, boarding parties, nuclear bombs, and 20 other possibilities. They had not prepared for the ship to simply fly away. Why? Veltrix whispered. Why would they do that? Sarath had no answer. That night, 3 Valorian captains suffered mental breakdowns. They were found in their quarters, talking to walls and mumbling about cheese weapons and liquid soldiers. The doctors had no treatment. There was no medicine for confusion. On the Defiance, Captain Morrison received a status report from Admiral Lawson. The Valorian fleet has stopped moving. They are sitting in the asteroid belt, too afraid to continue. 17 ships have requested to go home. Their commander has not spoken publicly in 4 days. Time for Phase 4? Jake asked. Almost. Give them one more day. Let them sit and wonder what comes next. The waiting is part of the weapon. Jake nodded and turned to Danny Vance. Send one final message to Veltrix tonight. Something personal. That night, a message arrived in Veltrix's private quarters. It said, "We know what you had for breakfast." Sweet dreams. Veltrix had eaten breakfast alone that morning. The menu was supposed to be secret. Only his cook knew what he ate. For the first time in his life, the conqueror of 47W3 weeks had passed since the Valorian fleet arrived in human space. They had expected to win in days. Instead, they were stuck near Mars, unable to move forward, unable to go back, unable to understand what was happening. The mighty fleet that had conquered 47 worlds now drifted in scattered groups. Ships that once flew in perfect formation now kept random distances from each other. Crews that once worked like machines now jumped at every sound and whispered nervously in corners. High Commander Veltrix sat alone in his dark room. He had not slept in 3 days. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw the cartoon rabbit. He heard the sad songs. He remembered the burning taste of the spicy food. On his desk sat a pile of reports. Morale, very bad. Supplies, okay but uncomfortable. Combat readiness, unknown. That last word bothered him most. Unknown. How could combat readiness be unknown? It was a simple number. Either soldiers were ready to fight, or they were not. But his soldiers were ready to fight an enemy they could understand. They were not ready to fight chaos. Sub-Commander Sereth entered without knocking. He had stopped caring about rules days ago. Nothing seemed to matter anymore. "Sir, Captain Vorix has locked himself in his cabin. He refuses to come out. He says the humans are watching him through the walls." Veltrix did not look up. "The walls are solid metal. Nobody can see through them." "I know, sir, but he believes it anyway." "Then replace him." "With who?" "Every captain in the fleet is showing signs of stress. We have lost 11 officers to breakdowns. 23 more are too sick to work. The remaining captains are barely functioning." Veltrix finally raised his head. His eyes were empty. "What do the humans want, Sereth? Why are they doing this?" "I think they want us to leave, sir." "Then why do they not say so? Why do they not fight us properly? We could beat them in open battle. We could respect them as real enemies. Instead, they send us cooking shows and fake reports about cheese weapons." Sereth paused. He had been thinking about this for days. "Sir, may I speak freely?" "Since when do you ask?" "The humans are not trying to beat us in the normal way. They are trying to destroy our ability to function as a military. They know our strength is our order, our patterns. So they are breaking those patterns, one by one." Veltrix stared at his second-in-command. "You like them? I am starting to understand them. That is different." Far from the Valorian fleet, Captain Jake Morrison received a strange message on a private channel. "USS Defiance. This is Sub-Commander Sereth. I want to speak with your captain. Alone." Jake looked at Lisa Trent. "Trap? Probably, but I want to hear what he says." Jake opened the channel. "This is Captain Morrison. What do you want?" There was a long pause. "I want to understand. We have conquered 47 worlds. We have never seen anything like this. Our computers say your strategy is impossible. Yet, it is working. How?" Jake thought about the question. "You want me to explain our tactics to the enemy? I am not asking for secrets. I am asking about your species. Why do you fight this way?" Jake leaned back in his chair. "Because fair fights are for people who can afford to lose. Humans have faced death before. Ice ages. Diseases. Wars. We survived because we refused to play by the rules. We cheated. We changed. We did whatever it took. But the strong should beat the weak. That is the only law. That is your law. Our law is different. Our law says the survivor wins, no matter how they survive. You expected chess. We are playing a game where we set the board on fire." Sereth was quiet for a long time. "Your Admiral Lawson sent us a surrender document this morning. I know. It is written in 47 languages. Each part says something different. Our lawyers have spent 9 hours trying to figure out if it is real. Jake smiled. Is it? We do not know. That is the problem. The surrender document had been Danny Vance's best work. It said Earth surrendered to the Valorians. It also said Earth was independent from the Valorians. It offered to buy the Valorian fleet. It asked the Valorians to surrender to Earth. It proposed marriage between humans and Valorians. In 17 languages, it asked why they were even fighting, while Valorian lawyers argued about the document. Human stealth ships snuck through the confused fleet. They attached small devices to enemy ships. Not bombs. Not weapons. Just speakers. Dr. Kate Holloway had designed the devices herself. They were simple, strong, and impossible to find until they turned on. At midnight, they turned on. Every ship in the Valorian fleet was suddenly filled with the sound of human laughter. Not mean laughter. Not scary laughter. Just the sound of people having fun. Children laughing at jokes, friends laughing at memories, families laughing together. The laughter lasted 30 seconds. Then it stopped. High Commander Veltrix was on his bridge when it happened. The sound surrounded him, seemed to come from inside his own head. When it stopped, he was standing in the middle of the room with his hands raised like he was fighting invisible enemies. His officers stared at him in horror. Sir, are you okay? Veltrix looked at his raised hands. They were shaking badly. He could not make them stop. Get out, he whispered. Sir, get out, all of you, now. His officers ran from the bridge. Veltrix stood alone, surrounded by screens showing a fleet that was falling apart. He began to scream. Sub-Commander Sarath found him 20 minutes later. Veltrix was on his knees, hitting his tactical console with his fists. There must be a pattern, Veltrix shouted. Find the pattern. Sir, please, you need rest. I need to understand. Why are they laughing? What do they know? Sarath knelt beside his commander. He had served under Veltrix for 15 years. He had seen him face armies, survive attacks, and conquer worlds. He had never seen him like this. Sir, the pattern you want does not exist. The humans are not following a plan. They just do whatever they think of in the moment. That is their strength. They do not know what they will do next, so we cannot predict it. Veltrix looked up. Tears were running down his gray face. Then how do we beat them? I do not think we can. Not like this. On the Defiance, Jake Morrison heard about Veltrix's breakdown. He felt no happiness, only tired sadness. Is it over? Lisa Trent asked. Not yet. Sarath has taken command, but the fleet is still here. They might still attack out of fear. Oh, Danny Vance checked his screens. Sir, I am hearing talk from the Valorian ships. The captains are meeting without Sarath. They are voting on what to do. Voting? Yes, sir. The invasion has become a democracy. The vote took 3 hours. 212 captains voted to leave. 38 voted to keep fighting. The fighters lost. Sarath accepted the result calmly. He had expected it. Part of him had wanted it. He sent one final message to Earth. This is Sub-Commander Sarath. We are leaving human space. There will be no attack on Earth. We do not surrender. We simply choose to leave. Maybe someday we can meet as something other than enemies. Admiral Lawson received the message with relief and pride. They are really leaving. We won, but Captain Morrison was already thinking about what came next. Not yet, he said. We did not beat them. We confused them. If we want this peace to last, we need to offer them something better than war. He began writing his final message to the leaving fleet. Orlds felt real fear. Sleep at his desk. Exhausted from days of confusion. In his dreams, he saw the dancing rabbit, Fro the Valorian fleet, gathered near Neptune, getting ready for the long trip home. Half the ships had already left for Valorian space. The rest waited for final orders. Their crews quiet and exhausted. Sub-Commander Sarath stood on the bridge of the Eternal Order. The ship was now his to command. High Commander Veltrix was in the medical bay, asleep with medicine keeping him calm. The doctors said he would get better, but he would never lead again. His mind had been broken by an enemy he could not understand. "Sir," a communications officer said, "we are getting a message from the human fleet. Another trick? I do not think so, sir. They are asking to speak with you." Sarah thought about ignoring the message and leaving. But something made him curious. These strange beings had beaten his fleet without killing anyone. The least he could do was listen. Put it through. Captain Jake Morrison's face appeared on the screen. He looked tired but calm. Behind him, Sareth could see the small bridge of the Defiance, filled with screens and coffee cups. "Sub-Commander, congratulations on your new position." "I would not call it a congratulation. I am commanding a broken fleet that failed its mission. You are commanding a fleet of living soldiers who will return to their families. That is not failure. That is wisdom." Sareth studied the human's face. He saw no mockery there, no pride, just honest respect. "Why did you call us?" he asked. Jake leaned forward. "I want to offer you something. Not a surrender, not a treaty, something else. I am listening. Come to Earth. Not with weapons, not with armies. Just you and anyone who wants to come. Learn about us. And we will learn about you. Let us find a way to end this without anyone else getting hurt." Sareth blinked. In 47 conquests, no species had ever offered such a thing. Beaten enemies surrendered or died. They did not invite their attackers for friendly visits. "Why would you trust us after everything?" Jake smiled. "Because I understand what you were trying to do. You wanted to bring order to the galaxy. You wanted to make everything safe and predictable. That is not evil. It is just different from how we see things." "How do you see things?" "We think chaos is not the enemy of order. We think they need each other. Too much order becomes a prison. Too much chaos becomes destruction. The best life happens somewhere in the middle." Sareth thought about these words for a long time. They went against everything he had been taught. But they also made a strange kind of sense. "I will think about your offer," he said, "but I cannot speak for all of us." "That is fine. Start with yourself. The rest will follow." 3 days later, the remaining Valorian fleet left human space. As they crossed the edge of the solar system, something unexpected happened. Human ships appeared around them. Not attacking. Not threatening. They flew in patterns, making shapes in space. First a circle, then a square, then something that looked like a heart. "What are they doing?" a Valorian officer asked. Sareth watched with growing wonder. "I think they are saying goodbye." The human ships made one final shape, 2 hands reaching toward each other across space. Then they scattered, returning home, leaving the Valorians to continue alone. Lieutenant Danny Vance broadcast one last message on all channels. A single word in the Valorian language. Friends. 1 year later, a single Valorian ship appeared at the edge of human space. It was small, had no weapons, and carried 30 volunteers who wanted to learn about the strange species that had beaten them with confusion and laughter. Captain Jake Morrison, now promoted to Commodore, met them at a space station near Earth. He brought gifts, music, cooking supplies, and a book of human jokes translated into Valorian. "The jokes may not make sense at first," he warned. "Humor is hard to translate." The lead Valorian, a young officer named Torax, took the book carefully. "We will study them. Maybe someday we will understand why humans say things that are not true and expect others to laugh. That is the spirit." The cultural exchange began slowly. Valorians learned about human art, music, food, and the strange idea called fun. Humans learned about Valorian science, medicine, and the complex math that ran their society. Not everything went smoothly. A Valorian cook cried for 2 hours after eating pizza for the first time. A human official accidentally insulted an entire Valorian region by wearing the wrong color. A mix-up about sleep habits caused a small panic when humans learned that Valorians dreamed in math. But slowly, carefully, 2 very different species began to find things in common. 6 months after the exchange started, Earth hosted its first party with both species. The event was held in a big hall in Geneva, with food from both worlds, music from both traditions, and enough confusion to cause a dozen small problems. High Commander Veltrix came as a special guest. He had recovered from his breakdown, though he still jumped when people laughed too loud. The doctors said this would fade with time. Commodore Morrison found him standing alone by a window, watching humans and Valorians try to dance together. "How are you feeling?" Jake asked. Veltrix took a long time to answer. "Strange. I spent my whole life building order. I conquered 47 worlds trying to make everything predictable. Now I am watching my people learn to dance. Is that so bad? I do not know, but I am starting to think my idea of victory was too small." Jake nodded. "We have a saying on Earth. The best victory is one where everyone survives to argue about what happened." Argue? Veltrix almost smiled. It was the first time he had tried to smile in over a year. The expression felt wrong on his face, but also somehow right. "I still do not understand your species," he said. "You could have destroyed us. You had every right to be angry. Instead, you offered friendship. Would you prefer if we had been angry? No. But I would understand it better." Jake looked out the window at the strange mix of humans and Valorians trying to share a moment. Some were laughing. Some were confused. A few were crying. It was messy and wild and completely unpredictable. "When we first saw your fleet," Jake said, "we knew we could not win a fair fight. So we had to choose. Fight mean and destroy you, or fight strange and confuse you. We chose confusion because it gave us a path to peace. Victory through destruction only makes enemies. Victory through confusion makes questions. Questions lead to talking. Talking leads to understanding." Veltrix thought about this, and understanding leads to friendship? Sometimes, if both sides are willing. "Are we friends, Commodore Morrison?" Jake turned to face the alien who had once threatened to destroy his entire species. He saw not an enemy, but a tired soldier who had learned that the universe was bigger and stranger than he had ever known. "Not yet," Jake said honestly. "But we could be, if you are willing to keep learning." Veltrix nodded slowly. "I am willing, though I may never understand your jokes. That is okay. Most humans do not understand them either." Somewhere in the hall, a Valorian was trying to explain why math was beautiful. A human was trying to explain why pizza was beautiful. Neither understood the other, but both kept trying. Outside, the stars continued their ancient dance across the sky. They had watched countless wars begin and end. Maybe this time, they were watching something new. Two species, choosing friendship over destruction, understanding over fear, and chaos over the cold perfection of conquest. The war for Earth was over. Something better had begun. As the party continued into the night, Commodore Morrison raised a glass of wine in a quiet toast. "To chaos," he said softly. "And to the friends it helped us make." Veltrix, who had finally figured out how to hold a wine glass, raised his own drink. "To chaos," he repeated. And though he still did not fully understand the word, he was starting to see what it meant. The universe would never be the same. And that was a good thing. Earth's first broadcast. It was laughing at him, and he did not understand why. Fusion, with chaos and madness. And humanity was just getting started.